few.
Yeah, I have a bunch.
Go ahead.
Hey, Evan, I just want to just give you a heads up. In case I decide to go long on politics and coronavirus, we might just skip the last segment altogether. Possibly skipped, but either way, it's going to be short on that. So, okay. So just heads up. You know, if I'm going long, just let everyone know I'm probably not going to read the third billboard.
You know, when I used to do the Fox show.
Yeah, exactly.
Fox is no longer, because they went to all live business shows.
Yeah,
Does
I probably do.
Sabrina still work down there?
Does who?
Rose and the Fox
Right.
News Bureau. Rose.
Great, great.
I haven't done,
You haven't done any
Fox
Fox shows for a while.
Good evening and welcome to the Week in Review. I'm Paris Schutz. In the last hour, a sixth case of coronavirus reported in Illinois. This a special education teacher at a CPS school. We'll have more on that in a bit. But first, Illinois' top Democrats coalesce behind Joe Biden for president. This after his Super Tuesday stunner has him just ahead of Bernie Sanders in the delegate race. Mayor Lori Lightfoot throws her support behind Democratic presidential candidate and former Vice President Joe Biden ahead of Illinois' primary.
I know President Biden will make Chicago a partner and not an adversary.
Meanwhile, Democratic presidential candidate and Senator Bernie Sanders hopes to rally local support at a Grant Park rally this weekend.
The risk to the general public remains low, but we are not taking any chances and preparing for all eventualities.
Trade shows and other activities are canceled as coronavirus fears spread throughout the city. And Chicago Police Interim Superintendent Charlie Beck strips the police powers of 2 officers involved in a recent shooting at the CTA Grand Red Line station. Joining us are Lynn Sweet of the Chicago Sun-Times, Bruce Japson, healthcare contributing writer at Forbes, Alexia Elahalde Ruiz of the Chicago Tribune, and our very own WTTW correspondent Amanda Vinicky. And again, to that story in the last hour, according to Chicago public health officials and the mayor, a 6th case of coronavirus. It's a woman in her 50s. She is a special education teaching assistant at Vaughn Occupational School on the Northwest Side. There are 212 students at that school, and school will be canceled there next week as they investigate this. But let's start off with politics tonight. Lynn Sweet, Biden, Sanders, who has the edge in Illinois?
Right now, I'd have to say Vice President Biden has the edge, and it's for a few reasons. Sanders in 2016 almost beat Hillary Clinton. She got 79 delegates, Sanders got 77. A big last-minute surge almost took him over the top, but we have a different dynamic now. What, you may ask, and I'll be brief. The big difference is we have President Donald Trump. Democrats are united in their desire to defeat him, even though within the Democratic family there are giant differences. We see this in the Sanders and Bernie camps, but the candidates who have dropped out, with the exception of Elizabeth Warren, have all consolidated with Biden, and even Warren said she's thinking it over. So as we look to the next set of primaries, Tuesday, And then March 17 in Illinois, the momentum here is with Sanders, who picked up today the endorsement of Mayor Lightfoot and Dick
You're
Durbin.
talking about Biden.
Did
Biden
I say
picked-
Sanders?
You said Sanders, yeah. Biden picked
Okay,
up. So
everybody,
Bruce,
stop. I meant.
Okay, so
I said Biden has it. He picked up the endorsements of Lightfoot and Dick Durbin.
Bruce, these are big Illinois Democrats. Bernie Sanders could say it's the establishment. Do these endorsements matter in the race?
Well, they might, given there were a lot of endorsements before. But I think when we have a period of full employment and the economy is good, one of his key issues, Medicare for All, is not really gaining traction because it would uproot the private insurance system. And after Super Tuesday, if Wall Street is any barometer, the health insurance stocks soared like 7 to 10%. So I think not only on people are turning to Biden because he's a familiar face, been in the White House before with President Obama, the issues that Bernie has are not really resonating with older voters.
Alexia, Elizabeth Warren dropped out. As Lynn said, she has not decided where she's going to go or where her voters might go. Where do you think she would go?
I mean, you would think that her, platform has aligned more with Sanders, but I mean, that's to be seen. I think that for a lot of voters, though, her exit has been quite emotional and disheartening to see. One thing that struck me during the Super Tuesday results as I was watching it was I couldn't even tell the difference when they were showing the pictures of Sanders and Biden, in their wins. I was like, is that the same man? And like,
So to a lot of women voters, you're
saying
saying
to a lot of
it's
women
disheartening.
voters, it was disheartening because you had these very qualified women who some might argue had more to offer than the two men who ended up, who now end up in the finalists.
Virtual runoff.
And so I think it's, it raised questions about like if they couldn't do it, who can? Especially even just get the nomination, let alone win the election.
And Amanda Vinicky, Joe Biden made this run with virtually no presence in a lot of these states. How is he able to do that? And is he going to build up a presence here on the ground and on TV?
He's certainly trying. We've already had his wife, Jill Biden, on Friday, was in town. They're going to have appearances both from Biden and Sanders campaigns. They're going to be ramping up. They hadn't paid a ton of attention to Illinois up until this point because they didn't have to. You have all these other states to come first, except for sure they're going to have their eyes on the prize. Illinois has a lot of delegates at stake. So yeah, you're going to be seeing that. They're not, by the way, going to be getting any endorsement.
101 elected from the 18 congressional districts.
And
The
from
the
others,
18
the
congressional
others
districts.
are in different categories.
And Lynn Sweet, one of the things that we're seeing from both candidates now on the air is our ads narrated by former President Barack Obama. It's kind of a case of who can hug Obama the hardest. Is that effective in Illinois?
If it's believable. And Sanders was never particularly close with Barack Obama, and he is running an ad that if you didn't know anything, you thought might be an endorsement. So I think here's what's critical in Illinois is the African American vote. That's mainly in the Chicago area. And that's where these endorsements might count. If you need vouching, you have Robin Kelly, Danny Davis, Jesse White coming on. And I think people, if you think that's the way you're going to decide, like who's closer to Obama, I think even for a low information voter, Obama's vice president was Joe Biden. Everybody knows that. And you can't really say what the connection is with Bernie Sanders.
Really the only big backer that you have in terms of political big names that is thus far endorsing Sanders is Congressman Chuy Garcia, who of course is very popular with a certain group. You do have progressives that have left, even those who were disheartened by Warren backing out, generally moving toward Sanders. We did have a poll from the Simon Public Policy Institute, but that's kind of old now. I mean, that was, so it doesn't matter anymore.
It puts Sanders on top, but Klobuchar, Buttigieg, and
means
Warren were
nothing.
still in the race.
Totally
forget it.
new landscape.
Speaking of presence, Sanders did have a presence here 4 years ago, and it never really left. He's got the Democratic Socialist alderman. He's got Representative Garcia, as Amanda mentioned, the Chicago Teachers Union. Are those a big deal?
Well, yes, they are, because they can turn out. And you also have Our Revolution Illinois and Our Revolution Chicago, chaired by Clem Balanoff, who is a organizer's organizer. So that can help turn out the Sanders vote, of course, especially in the wards where that movement has taken hold, where you have the Democratic Socialist movement at its strongest. An effective argument that is you're hearing more and more now is that everything that you care about, if you're a Bernie Sanders backer, only happens if you have a Democratic House and potentially if you could flip those 4 seats you need in the Senate. And 3 if you have a Democratic president. So there is an element of risk with Sanders at the head of the ticket if you believe he cannot deliver on his promise to turn out more Democratic votes to then neutralize the people who are afraid of his socialist
I think the bottom
background.
line is people, they want to get rid of Trump because
Right.
Biden didn't even advertise in Massachusetts.
I was going to say, was
Or
that what
Minnesota.
propelled Biden
And
on
I
Super
would think
Tuesday?
it had to be. It'll be really interesting to see what happens in Illinois because I don't really see Biden ads. I'm not a Bloomberg supporter, but after he dropped out, I got 2 Bloomberg mailings, and there were ads on TV because maybe he already spent.
But he says he's going to be coming out with money to get behind Democrats. I mean, we're going to see, and I think something else to point out that's sort of interesting here is, of course, all the ballots were printed before the race was winnowed down. And so that could complicate things for
Especially
voters.
in
There might
Illinois,
be plenty of
where
throwaway
they
votes,
vote for
people
LaRouche
unsure, early voting already started.
And that your boy we're showing your age there. But to everybody who's
Lyndon
listening,
LaRouche, I know what you're talking
to
about.
everybody who's listening to us tonight, you are going to have more than a dozen presidential names of people who to choose from. And if for some reason it's very close, then a few thousand votes that didn't go to Biden or Sanders could be a factor. My guess is that right now, people understand that this has been shrunken to a 2-person race. Oh, a 2-man race. Oh, 2 men over 70. Yeah, but that's what you got. So I don't know if those other names on the ballot will be determinative in the outcome now, but everything needs to be paid attention to.
Should Illinois residents expect a lot of activity over the next week and a half, a lot of campaign events? We got this rally for Sanders tomorrow.
Sanders tomorrow, 1:30, Grant Park. Jill Biden was in Chicago on Friday, a fundraiser in Glencoe, joined the members of Congress in Lightfoot today for her event, did one more thing. Biden will have a public event next week in addition to his fundraisers. And I also expect some high-profile surrogates to come to Illinois in the coming days, too.
All right, that'll be fun to cover, but let's move on to some coronavirus coverage. What we know about the 6 known coronavirus cases reported in Illinois. From college spring breaks to international trade shows, events and activities in Chicago are canceled due to coronavirus fears. And Illinois officials say travelers flying into O'Hare from China and Iran are being screened for coronavirus at O'Hare, but travelers from Italy and South Korea are not being screened. Bruce Japson, so this latest coronavirus special education teacher, how susceptible are kids? She was around kids at this CPS school, so how susceptible are kids to this?
Yeah, that's a great question. Dr. Anthony Fauci, who, given the mixed messages that come out of the White House any given day, he is the person people should pay attention to. He is with the National Institutes of Health. He's worked for 7 presidents. He had a briefing today that I listened to, and in the epidemiology studies, the studies of the data in South Korea and Italy and so forth, they have not noticed a lot of infections among children. Now, that's not to say that they're not being exposed. That's not to say that they're not passing it along, but it's been a kind of a surprise to folks that there haven't been sick kids emerge and so forth. It's still early. We're going to get more cases. We're going to get a lot more cases.
But you're saying that children might be less susceptible than adults, and even more less susceptible than senior citizens who may be compromised.
Get sick and could be, potentially die. Yes, that's what they're seeing so far. But I think people should be prepared for a surge in cases. And just be prepared, which is why people are taking all these preventative measures. Insurance companies are waiving copays. Go to the doctor. There's not a financial reason for you not to go because your copay is going to be waived. Don't go to work sick. Don't be a martyr. And all sorts of things like that.
All of us are healthy here, right?
Oh, yeah,
no one feels any
But here's the
respiratory.
thing. If I were to have the virus and I were to cough, it's the odds are, or the epidemiology studies are showing that if you're infected, that you're likely going to infect 2 or 3 other people.
All
So
right,
that's
I want to
Lynn
get more on
and
that,
you
but
and you.
Alexia, the other impact here, Chicago loses the Housewares show, a big trade show at McCormick Place. 2 other shows are gone. What is the economic impact of that?
So the Housewares cancellation was a huge one. They bring about 60,000 attendees to that show, $77 million alone there. 2 more conferences this week, Oracle and then Ace Hardware, for a grand total of about 80,000 people who would be coming here who are no longer going to be coming here.
And so that's hotel taxes and
that trickles down. So
restaurants.
That's all, right. So that trickles down to airfare, to hotels, to restaurants, to transportation companies that help shuttle people back and forth. McCormick Place, or the agency that oversees it, they've estimated there are about 9 big conventions that were supposed to happen over the next 90 days for a total of about $460 million in economic spending. So a lot of those conventions, they're monitoring it. They're thinking like, are we going to stay or not? I talked to some of the ones that are scheduled for May, like the National Restaurant Association has a big one in May. Sweets and Snacks, which is the Confectioners Association, they're watching it. They're canceling some exhibitors from certain countries where
So this could snowball to a major economic impact then if they lose all these shows.
Certainly, and I mean, it's happening obviously now. South by Southwest canceled today. That's huge.
That's in Austin, Texas.
That's in
right?
Austin.
Big festival.
But even Natural Products Expo West, which is a big natural foods conference in Anaheim, California, they canceled earlier this week, and that has a lot of downstream effects because there are a lot of food companies in Chicago, a lot of startups in Chicago that go there to show off their products, which won't be able to do so now. So does that affect their ability to get on the radar of retailers and onto shelves?
So we'll have to wait and see how this affects the Chicago and Illinois economy going forward. Amanda,
And their budgets.
And their budgets, the tax revenue that they rely on. How have Illinois and Chicago officials handled this outbreak to this point?
They say that they're trying to be as upfront as possible, to come out quickly with information, to give updates as soon as they hear that there is a case, as happened this afternoon. They said it was just an hour after test results came back positive for that teacher who worked with special education students at Vaughn Vocational in Chicago, that it was just an hour after that test that they immediately held an evening press conference to let that be known in canceling school. So they're saying, hey, everybody, risk is low. They keep on repeating that to try and, I think, not cause a sort of freak out, and at the same time trying to be very educational. And of course, again, you got to give the reminder they do all the time: wash your hands, and as you said, stay home if you aren't feeling well.
In our case here, there was the young guy who was at Rush, who was in Florence, Italy, got sick. He had a fever, he had a cough. Either he or his parents, he went to get treatment. The good news here is, looking forward, is, all major health systems and hospitals have electronic medical records.
Are there enough testing kits in Illinois?
Not
Officials
yet.
say that they're okay.
Well, here's the deal. I mean, we have not had that many cases. We don't have LabCorp, a company not familiar to our viewers, but they're developing tests and they're starting to ramp up. We have not had this whole thing where, politically they're saying, oh, we need 1 million tests or whatever. Well, maybe we will, maybe we won't. But they're on the right path. And the idea is to detect people. And the governor said in his press conference, we have 3 testing sites in Illinois. Basically, the testing is handled through the Centers for Disease Control and the public health officials. It's not like if you go to your doctor, there's systems in place, there's electronic health records, things people can communicate. You can get a test, you can get tested.
Alexia, back to the economic fears. What about a national recession? You've seen another week where the Dow has performed poorly. Do economists expect that we are headed for a recession?
So the market's been acting like it could come. It's been very scared. It's been very uncertain. I spoke with an economist yesterday who said that the economic indicators don't necessarily point to a recession. The thing is that the growth was already kind of decelerating in the U.S. when this hit. So it was a much more vulnerable economy to this shock. And so what's happening now is that there's a lot of consumer confidence, that's been impacted by this. If that translates into fewer people going to restaurants and to movies and shopping, that could then, snowball and really hit the economy quite hard. And like this most recent news about the school closing, if that spreads and employers are having people not come into work and work from home and people are kind of self-quarantined, that could be a real problem. But right now, this one economist was like, not so fast, let's not worry about the recession.
And the CDC is even saying that senior citizens should stay home because if their immune systems are more compromised, they're most at risk. Lynn Sweet, it's a mixed message coming out of Washington here. Is this going to be a political issue in the race for president? And is Donald Trump in trouble because of the perception of his handling of this?
Let me take those multiple questions. So is Donald Trump in trouble today? No. Could he be if it persists? If his supporters see that he has not been able to contain the coronavirus. And I say that is a separate category than the population at large, of whom many voters are against him no matter what, and this is just one more case. Now, the other thing is, if Trump is sending, of course, mixed messages and downplaying the severity of this spreading virus in the United States and downplaying the illness and the heavier impacts, and how people are getting well. What's the big deal, he implies. But if indeed our scientists and medical officials get a handle on it and it subsides and the markets come back, November in political years is a long, long time away, and there could be other things that come. So
It's forever away.
Right now, I don't assess the damage, and I don't see Trump saying, let's not have any of my massive rallies in order to make sure no one gets sick, because that would be a bit counterproductive to his message he's sending out. So Trump's resilience is remarkable. We've seen this through everything leading up to impeachment and now beyond. So I don't think that this is determinative at this time.
Well, one of his big things is the stock market. You know, he likes to take credit for the stock market. The stock market is a mess.
And it's the Fed's fault when it's down.
And it's uncertain.
For not cutting rates
and
enough.
It's uncertain.
Yeah.
And he cut the Fed chairman cut the rates. It didn't do anything. I mean, the uncertainty, part of it is because of what the White House message is. That's what folks tell me, because they're not giving a clear signal. So I would tell your viewers, when you see the Dr. Anthony Fauci serve 7 presidents, nice guy, very smart, whatever, pay attention to him.
Pay attention to the medical experts.
The guy, not the big guy behind him.
And not
or
Vice President Pence.
Exactly.
Yeah.
These guys, the health insurance companies, for example, Pence came out and said that, we'll make this an essential health benefits. That's kind of an Obamacare thing. They're supposed to be against that. The health insurance companies then came out today and Thursday saying, we're going to cover the tests, because there were mixed signals coming out of the administration. So you got to kind of step back and go to the CDC website if you're not really convinced that if you're not trusting what's coming out of my mouth or our mouths. Go to the CDC website before you travel. It's all listed on there what countries you should go to and shouldn't go to.
All right, I want to get to another story this week before we wrap up. Amanda, the FOP had an election. It's in a runoff now. Two finalists. What should we know about them, and why should the public care?
What I think really you need to know about them is that they are going to be in charge, and this is also why the public should care, of negotiating a new police contract. It has been going on 3 years since the FOP last had one, and that has been an issue. That's how Kevin Graham, who is one of the men, the current president that is in the runoff, got to that place, because he said, hey, we need one of these. The issue being that it is clear there is some sentiment that is exactly opposite that you have from the Chicago City Council in terms of reaching any compromise.
Well, they have to sign off on a contract.
They've got to sign off on a contract.
And clearly they want reform, they want oversight, and they want the consent decree.
And you can see from the results of this FOP election that the membership there is feeling very much under attack.
I have to leave it
going at odds.
All right. Well, we all went at odds in a friendly manner, but we're out of time. So my thanks to Lynn Sweet, Bruce Japson, Alexia Elahalde Ruiz, and Amanda Vinicki. We'll see you on the next edition of The Week in Review. I'm Paris Schutz. Of course, the other huge story this week is Wendy's has something called a Baconator. What exactly is that?
I don't know. It's got like a cheesy sauce and it has a sausage patty. Has anyone tried it?
This is a lot of calories.
It says it's like twice as many calories as the Egg McMuffin.
Is this
There's also a bag of bacon. Isn't Dunkin' Donuts a bag of bacon?
The
That's
fake
more
burgers for Lent.
Right.
They
That's
must
still
be made
meat,
of
I guess.
I guess.
So does this put a dent in McDonald's ownership of fast food breakfast?
I mean, they're trying, but historically, anybody who's tried to rival McDonald's for breakfast has not succeeded. McDonald's just has cornered the market on that.
I live near a Popeyes, though, and let me tell you, the
Popeyes
line
has
is
breakfast?
still ridiculous. No, for their spicy chicken sandwich.
Right, no, chicken's a
It
thing.
is very, very, very annoying.
Wait until they get
to
into the
drive
breakfast
by.
game.
Yeah.
Wendy's has a honey butter
chicken.
chicken sandwich, too.
Ah.
Closed captioning for this program is brought to you by Robert A. Clifford and Clifford Law Offices, dedicated to preserving the dignity and rights of all individuals.
Hello, and thanks for joining us this Friday for the Week in Review. I'm Sky Ziskin, and I'm here with Chicago Tonight's Brandis Friedman. Thank you so much for joining me.
Happy to be here.
We are here to talk to you about the Week in Review, Chicago Tonight, the wonderful, rich programming that you have on WTTW thanks to viewers like you. We have something very exciting as well. So if you give us a call, 773-588-1111, you can join in on a challenge grant that is going on right now.
And that challenge grant that means that some very generous friends of WTTW, they have agreed to match every single dollar of your donation up to $5,000. Now that effectively, it doubles your donation.
If you're a new member thinking this is the first time that I want to contribute, it doubles your impact. If you are a seasoned member who has contributed every year, you know how rare challenge grants are, and to seize on this opportunity just really makes your money work even harder for you and for us as we are preparing more shows that inspire you and that you can't wait to get home and watch, like today's show, the Week in Review. I know people look forward to that. It is an interesting concept where you've got people from lots of walks of life. You've got reporters from Cranes, you've got reporters from the 670, the Score,
exactly.
And you bring them all together. How does that work?
So I think that's part of the popularity of the Week in Review, actually. I think that's why so many people enjoy watching it, is because you get to hear from reporters who are very well versed and informed from around the city. But what you're getting from them is you are getting to hear them unscripted. You are getting their analysis of the story. And that is a collaboration on the part of the folks here in the newsroom at Chicago Tonight and the Week in Review. The producer usually teams up with whoever's hosting that week. Usually it's Paris Schutz, who you often see covering the city of Chicago, City Council. And they have to keep a very close watch on what the news is that week and who's covering what, and how we can talk about it, how we can advance that conversation on the Week in Review. So when you're watching Chicago Tonight or the Week in Review, you know, you're really getting to hear from some of the best reporters. They're very knowledgeable about the city and its history.
I have more questions for you, but first I just want to get back to this challenge grant, because this is an incredible opportunity for anyone who wants to call in and make a contribution to double that impact. 773-588-1111 or go to WTTW.com. Again, this is a $5,000 challenge grant provided anonymously by some generous friends of WTTW, so thank you very much. Contributions are matched dollar for dollar. Let's talk a little bit more about Chicago Tonight. It's been a staple on air in WTTW for 36 years. You've been a part of it for the last 6.
I have been a part of it for the last 6. And, you know, those 36 years, I think we all agree we're very lucky to have had the respect and trust of the viewers for that entire time.
Well, WTTW's purpose is to engage, enrich, and inspire. How does this purpose bleed over into the news coverage that you do?
I think we hope that we're doing all three. You know, obviously we hope we are engaging with our community, not only by going out and finding stories across the city and bringing them back, but also by getting the community members to help tell their own stories here on Chicago Tonight. And hopefully all of that is enriching, right? Hopefully you're getting something from learning all of that additional information. It's what we try and do, and you're probably being inspired as well. You know, we have some other amazing correspondents. Maybe it's Jay Shefsky's stories, which are always, I think, inspiring, or maybe you're inspired by something that our arts correspondent Angel Edo has done. She manages to find stories that you don't really see anywhere else, and so I think you're getting something special if you should tune into Chicago Tonight and get some of those stories.
Well, we definitely have something special going on right now here with our challenge grant. So if you are interested in giving us a call at 773-588-1111 and making a contribution of any kind of budget-friendly dollar amount for you, it's going to be doubled up to $5,000 with this challenge grant. So again, you can go online at WTTW.com as well. I don't know if you know this though, but viewer contributions from people like you and like me are the single biggest source of revenue for WTTW. So it is so important that we capitalize on these challenge grants because they're few and far between, and viewers at home like you who are maybe on the fence or maybe haven't contributed in a while, it makes it so much more valuable during a challenge grant. So 773-588-1111 is our phone number. WTTW.com is how you can reach us online. We have a very short amount of time left in this break, but